So, if for those who don't know me, my name is Austin. On Arena, my nickname's been the Lizard King for a while because my MTGO name and tapped out name for some reason was taken. That's if you see my list on there, it's Grape Lightning. That might be where you came to this video from. I've had 2 or 3 people request in person and at least 10 or 15 requests online for me to make this video just about my standard Goblins list that's kind of becoming a little bit more popular. I have 2 different lists. What I have pulled up right here is best of 3, and first I'm going to start off with just some card selection and the cards I do run, the cards I don't run in my main board and my sideboard. And we'll just go through them card by card here. Skirt Prospector. For those of you who are familiar with my tapped out list, know that in my best of 3 I've always had just 3 of these and 4 of the Instigators, because the Instigator pairs so well with our War Chief here and our Icon of Ancestry. But Skirk's become so important in the deck, and especially in particular matchups such as the Esper matchup and the Gruul matchups for reach and speed, that it's really hard not to justify a 4th one, especially when you can operate on lower levels of lands, which 24 seems like a lot, but when you're trying to cast a 5/5, by turn 4, turn 5 on curve, it's actually not as easy to do so as you would think. Our next card is Shock. It's just something that one of our only. We don't want to run too many cards that are non-Goblin cards in the deck. And Lava Coil and Lightning Strike, they're too much mana and they're too limited for the main deck. We do have Lava Coils in the sideboard. That's primarily for things like Rekindling Phoenix, which our deck really struggles to fight through. In the Gruul matchup, that's one of our worst matchups, and we'll go over matchups and sequencing and things here later. Goblin Instigator, it's pretty simple. It's 2 bodies for 2 mana. With an Icon of Ancestry out, it makes 2 2/2s for 2 mana, and that's pretty solid. And that's one of my favorite sequencing. If you know that there's not a Chain Whirler, if you know that your opponent's not in red, if they didn't play a turn 1 Mountain, it's pretty safe that this is one of your best turn 2 plays possible in the deck. It's not something that we're always going to be happy with when we get stuck with 2 and 3 of these in our hand, and especially when we don't have an Icon of Ancestry, because they just more or less just become fodder against a lot of decks. But if you start getting these pumped by 1 or 2 of these, or if you get a Siege Gang online, that's a really strong card. Now let's move down to the Icon. That's one of our new cards from Core Set 2020. And as you can read it on the screen here, you choose a creature type, it gives those creatures +1/+1. One of the neatest things about it, though, is you do 3 and tap, look at the top 3 cards of your library, you may reveal a creature card of the chosen type from among them and put it into your hand. Then you put the rest of them on the bottom of your library, blah blah blah. This is primarily in the deck, obviously, because we're Goblins, but the interaction with Skirt Prospector is pretty insane here. In the face of a board wipe, we can often get some card advantage back, and that's one of the things our deck really has an edge over compared to other decks, is our resiliency against board wipes. The fact that we can fight through those Kaya's Wraths and those Cleansing Novas with our Ringleaders, which is an amazing card, by the way, and our Icon of Ancestry being able to draw a card. In response to that, we really have a lot of success in the Esper matchup or other control matchups, from my experience at least. It's never a guaranteed win, but it's an amazing card. I'm really looking forward to keeping playing Goblins in the historic format. We are losing Siege Gang and we're losing War Chief and Skirk, all 3, it's a pretty big bummer for me personally, but I'm not sure how our deck's going to be able to function, at least not at this tier 1 level it's been functioning at. But it'll still be a fun deck, and like I said, we might get more pieces, and in the historic format, it's obviously going to be fun. Now let's keep going up through here. Chain Whirler, it's a little bit of a non-bow with Goblin War Chief, and I use that really loosely, because a 3/3 for 3 first strike haste that deals 1 damage to everything is not quite. It's hard for that to ever be a non-bow, but it never gets its cost reduced by War Chief. So it's a little bit frustrating when you have multiples of these stuck in your hands, but it's such a good card, it's such a powerful card, it's nearly impossible not to go ahead and run all 4 of them. You have to have a full play set, and when your opponent turn 2 Paradise Druids, this is one of the best answers in the format. It broke the format for quite a while when Dominaria first came out, and this is also going to be rotating with Dominaria. Let's look up here obviously, start at War Chief. Pretty simple. Goblin spells you cast cost 1 less. Goblins you control have haste. This into a Siege Gang commander is nearly unbeatable for most decks. Especially if we get the curve of turn 1 we get a Skirk, into turn 2 a Goblin Instigator, into a War Chief, into a Siege Gang commander. All of a sudden we can turn all our blocks into favorable, all our opponent's blocks into favorable for us. We just simply sacrifice the smaller creatures and either allow damage to go directly to our opponent's face if we got them at that low of a life total, or we can change it so we knock some of their problem creatures, like 3 and 4 toughness creatures are a bit of a nuisance for our deck, especially when we don't have an icon out. But overall, just that it's an amazing card. It was amazing and extended. It's been good in Legacy, and it's obviously a 4 of in our deck. Let's moving on up to Legion War Boss. This card's really interesting in our deck because it's one of the only cards that can win a game by itself. It and Siege Gang Commander are really the only cards that just absolutely take over the game, and they're must answers for our opponent the turn after they come down, or that just starts getting out of hand. One of the things that we'll talk about sequencing a little bit later, when you're on the ramp matchup specifically, if you see a turn 1 tapped Breeding Pool, you have a Skirk Prospector, go ahead and sacrifice that Skirk Prospector and get this thing out on turn 2. There's a lot of ramp decks going around. Like obviously you have the old mass manipulation decks, and there's one recently I've seen that is Flood of Tears into Omniscience, but those decks require time and a bad board state to go off. And if you can start putting that pressure on the battlefield with one card, you're not actually losing any damage by sacrificing that Skirk Prospector, because you are getting the 1/1 on the battlefield that turn. But if you see that matchup and you see a Breeding Pool tapped on turn 1, know that you want to get that pressure out as soon as possible and as fast as possible. Alright, moving up to Krinko. He's a card that, when he goes off, he's unbelievable. When he doesn't, it's a 3-mana Dies to Shock, which you could say that about several of our cards are X-mana Dies to Shock, but particularly Krinko, he's a little bit slow, but if you have an Icon of Ancestry online, and you can sequence your turns where you have War Chief into Krinko, then we're really, really in business, we're really moving. Often you're just starting to swing out at that point and be really aggressive, because every damage that he can do, every swing that he gets is just doubling the amount of power that he has spread out over multiple bodies, because all those 1/1 goblins are turning into 2/2s or 3/3s because of the icon. And that's it's pretty powerful. It's hard, unless a deck has a sweeper, it's really hard for them to recover from that. Ringleader, obviously, if you haven't read this card or don't know what it does, it's a lot of time it can whiff, but people say, oh, sometimes it's random. It's a 4-mana 2/2 that whiffs. Well, it got 4 cards off the top of your deck that you probably didn't want anyway on the top of your deck. So it is always an amazing card, always a 4-of playset in the deck. It very often, I would say the most average is a draw 2, draw 3, but even drawing 1's a good tempo advantage. And if you can hit a draw 3 after a board wipe by your opponent, they probably can't recover at that point. Siege Gang, it's a little bit innocuous on the surface. Obviously, it creates a lot of bodies, which is nice with Icon. But the combo with Skirk Prospector is one of the most important things about it. One of the things that our deck can struggle with a little bit in the late game is reach. And so if you have a Siege Gang Commander and a Skirk Prospector on the battlefield, and one other Goblin, at that moment, if you can get that combination on the battlefield, that's 4 damage guaranteed at your opponent's face. Because you need a total of 6 Goblins, you have to sacrifice 2 for mana, 1 for the effect, to deal 4 damage to your opponent. And there's been many, many times where I've just been able to swing out, or even after swinging out with a large battlefield, and just sack my entire board, and it doesn't matter because your opponent's tapped out, and they can't handle the 4 damage, they can't take it. So even though you're without a board state, you won. So one of my favorite quotes is, some of the best type of card advantage is when you win the game with no cards in your hand. It's kind of the same thing with the battlefield. And obviously, 24 mountains. There's not really a whole bunch else to talk about with the deck choices itself. Let's talk about sequencing. So if you don't have your orders automatically triggered, I'd recommend, or have it set to manually trigger, I'd recommend to do that. But you always, always, always want to trigger it. So War Boss's Mentor trigger resolves before Krinko. That way, you can give Krinko Mentor, and you can give him one more counter, or well, one more counter, and it's an extra goblin for free. Outside of that, like I said, Skirk into Siege Gang is +1 goblin is always 4 damage. So that's something to always keep in mind, even when you're completely tapped out of mana, you've already swung out. Also, like I said, Skirk really creates good blocking scenarios where we're throwing damage at our opponent's face instead of absorbing it. Siege Gang, rather. But Skirk, one of the biggest questions I have when I play, one of the hardest things to answer, especially in a game where you don't know what your opponent's on quite yet, is keeping a 2-land Skirk Prospector hand with all of these 3-drops. He has so many 3-drops. I try not to keep that without, unless it's a multi 6 or lower, because we really want to hit that 3rd land. After we hit that 3rd land, we've really got the ball rolling, but until then, our deck can be a little bit clunky in its mana base sometimes. That's just part of having a deck that's primarily 3-drops. There's no Aether Vial in Standard, nothing similar to that, so we have to kind of take our lumps with that sometimes. And I will say, if you think about, if you do not draw into a land by your 2nd draw step, go ahead and sacrifice the Skirk Prospector and play your 3-drop, assuming that you're not playing against just a true Esper control deck where you want as many bodies as possible. Because what happens that next turn you don't draw the land? Well, you're in the same situation you were the turn before, where you have to sacrifice the Skirk Prospect to play any cards. So you might as well go ahead that turn if you have no lands in hand to get the maximum value. You're in a bad situation anyway at that point, but at least you have a little bit of speed, and especially if you can get a Legion War Boss or a Chain Whirler or a War Chief online to reduce the cost of your other spells, you're still in the fight, you still have a chance. With sequencing, that's about the only other thing I can mention is Instigator into Icon before you play anything else is always good, because you're pushing through more damage, and you're able to block more effectively if you need to block more effectively. You're not trading with 1-power creatures against white weenies and things like that. You're setting up a good board state at that point. Like I said, Krinko, War Chief's something you typically want to get down first and fast, and we'll get into some gameplay here. I'll go ahead and record 2 games of best of 3 and 3 games of best of 1, just to give an idea. Outside of that, I'll have to answer any questions, as I'm not streaming this in the comments. Let's go ahead and back up here and go back to our decks. Let's look at the best of 1 list really quick. We'll go back and we'll look at the sideboard of the best of 3 as well, but I'll explain the sideboard differences. So here you see, I'm only running 3 of each of these, and I'm running 1 main deck Banefire. These card, Banefire and Volley Veteran, make some matchups that are borderline unwinnable for us very winnable. So our 3, or well, really our 2 worst matchups is Gruul Aggro, because of Rekindling Phoenix, all these 4 toughness creatures, and this card is very, very good against them. And I've had games where I've killed a Galta with this card. If you can get on the board and your opponent is not running board wipes, it just gets better and better as the game goes on, and it has a lot of power, so it trades up in combat. And if it gets through, it's a huge chunk of damage as well. Banefire with Skirk Prospector here. We know that's an amazing combo that often I've won a game before with my opponent that had 32 zombies on the battlefield from a Scape Shift combo with the new Field of the Dead, and I was able to push through exactly 10 damage because I had enough of a board state that I could sacrifice all my goblins for the one-of main deck Banefire. And that was a pretty awesome experience, but that's why it's in the main deck here. Look at the best of 1 sideboard, because we're going to play best of 1 first. I have the other 2 Volley Veterans in the sideboard. Obviously we're not bringing any of these in. This was originally my best of 3. It's very similar to the best of 1 sideboard. As you can see that in the best of 3 sideboard. In the best of 3, Chandra is a really good tech. On the surface, you look like, oh man, like we're going to board wipe ourselves with her -3, but she does much more than that. She can't be countered against control. She's targeted removal against big creatures that we wouldn't otherwise be able to handle with lava coils. And she really is, she's a solid card overall. She's pretty amazing, actually. Her +2 keeps pressure on our opponent. They can't dilly-dally even when we have a bad board state. They have to be a little bit more aggressive than they would normally be. And her -3, if we're playing around it, obviously against the elemental deck, it's not wonderful. But against white weenie decks and vampire decks, which is, like I said before, our 2 worst matchups is Gruul and vampires, and her -3 against vampires will often keep us alive, along with leaving behind, one of the most powerful bodies in Standard right now in her. Banefire, we talked about. It's amazing. Provides reach, can be removal if you need it to be. I often will use it to just go ahead and remove their turn 1 mana dork on my turn 2. Especially if I have that 3rd land to play my 3-drop, because like I said, we really struggle to hit the 4th and 5th mana on curve a lot of times. And that can be what gets us killed very often. Let's go back. Let's look at the rest of my sideboard in best of 3 really quick. Then we'll move on to some gameplay. The sideboard I've been using for best of 3, I just have 1 Fry, 1 Tibalt. Lava Coil's good. Fry just gets us some guaranteed Planeswalker removal. There's not a whole lot of Planeswalkers that we really can't handle. But being able to go ahead and get a Teferi off the board is really nice. Volley Veteran, obviously we have it as a complete 4 of in the sideboard. It is. Any Gruul matchup, it's just automatic bring in all 4. Any creature matchup in general, you're more than likely bringing in the playset. What I usually take out, it depends on if they're running larger creatures and I don't have to worry about mana dorks. I will take out at least a couple of shocks and usually some instigators, because if they're getting big enough that I want the Volley Veteran in over the Lava Coil, the instigators are probably not large enough to punch through anyway, and don't add enough value anyway, so they're very often they come out. Krinko is another example of a card that comes out because he's not great when the opponent has a board state, because he might get to swing through once and then dies, which if you have an icon on the battlefield, he still gets some value out of it, but not near as much as what he does in when your opponent has a weak board state or a less of a board state than you do. Just go ahead and bring it. I would go ahead and bring in the 1 Siege Gang very often in grindier matchups like Black-Green, Sultai, where I'll need as many bodies as possible, and I want something that I know that I'm going to be able to cast in the late game that has a very powerful effect. That's similar to Chandra in that regard. Tibalt, Skirk Prospector is really good against decks that gain life, especially, for example, Lyra. You just go to combat, you swing out, and whichever card Lyra blocks, you just sacrifice with Skirk Prospector, so they gain no life, and you push the damage through. I've been able to win 1 or 2 games that way. You don't see Lyra as much, but that's just an example. There are a lot of life gain decks floating around. Lava Coil obviously gets rid of Rekindling Phoenix. Does a lot of work for us overall. Let's just go ahead and hop into some gameplay here. I've kind of let my rankings slip down pretty bad. I'm testing out a Naya Feather deck that's something I've wanted to try for a while, and it's done okay, but there's been a lot of editing of cards, so we're pretty low in the Mythic rankings right now. Let's go ahead and get started with some best of 1 Goblins. Queued up pretty quick right now. The Mythic ladder's gotten a lot more full. Okay, we're playing someone a little bit lower ranking than us even right now, so that's good. We'll try to get into the top 1,000 today. Now see, here's a hand that I was talking about before that we run into so often. I know with 22 lands, it's a little bit more common, but statistically the difference between 22 and 24 is very low in what hands you have. So let's go ahead and mulligan this. We don't need to have a way to accelerate into these 3-drops. Alright, this one's a lot better. Let's go ahead and keep this 6. We won't be able to cast the Siege Gang anytime soon, so let's go ahead and bottom it. This is one of the sequencing I was talking about, where Instigators on its own is not great, but with that Icon of Ancestry, we have a little bit of game. Our opponent's probably... Oh, that's a really good card as well. Our opponent's probably on Gruul or some type of ramp deck, but we'll see as we get on here. Maybe just mono green even. Alright, that's a really good card actually. Let's go ahead and get the 2 instigators out. We'll see if they play something with a large body and we can't push through damage anyway. We may go ahead and play the War Chief. Okay, we know this is some type of ramp deck. We want to go ahead and get some power on, some damage pushed through here. Hopefully we draw into a land next turn, because War Chief into Goblin Instigator next turn would be very, very good. We'll see how that works out for us. Looks like maybe mono green. We ought to be seeing a Nissa right here. Yep. Imagine my shock.
Strange and magnificent world.
Alright, so
the land
comes a 3/3, gets his beats in. Alright, well, there we go. We like that. Let's go instigate, or War Chief. Into Instigator. We're going to lose a Goblin here probably, but let's get this off the board. If we trade, we trade. If we don't, we don't. That's fine. We've got another War Chief in hand. And we have a Ringleader to refill our hand. Okay, that's a really good trade for us. We have the second War Chief in hand, and we're getting the Nissa off the battlefield. And we basically strip mine them. All for 3 mana, I might add. Second Gift of Paradise, not too worried about that. The life gain's pretty irrelevant with us. Okay. Paradise Druid, definitely not worried about that either. Alright, so this is one of those sequencing questions. On the surface it looks like just play Ringleader, but you have to remember War Chief reduces the cost of creatures here. So let's go ahead and get the War Chief on. They can't block the War Chief right now. Alright. And the next turn, we should be able to go Ringleader into Spell. Hopefully another Goblin. A War Boss off the Ringleader would be fine. And see, that's a perfect example. This is why you sequence things the way we sequence them. Board wipe. Boom. Into Ringleader. Let's refill our hand. Boom. Look at that. Swing 3. Good game, opponent. They are dead if they don't have an answer right now. That's an answer. How big is that? How much life do they gain off that, though? So they draw 3. Up to 3. Okay. We're at 6 mana. Let's refill our hand again. Here's the question. So their board wipe kills their Hydroid Crisis as well, so we're going to hold back a turn and see if we can get lethal next turn. It might be better to swing both the Ringleaders, but we would for sure lose one. And I would rather force a board wipe from their hand right now if we can. So there's a Temple. So they're on Sultai, technically. Scry's on top. That might not be a great thing for us, but it might be okay. Second Growth Spell is a really good sign for us. If we could get a Legion War Boss off the top of our deck, that would be absolutely, that would be GG on the spot, even if they have a second Crisis here. Yeah, that's not great for us. Yeah, that helps them quite a bit, but that's fine. That buys them a turn. That was one of the things we were a little bit not wanting here. Let's get some bodies on the field. No point in swinging and just losing both our creatures. Go. And hope they don't have a ritual set off the top. If they do, both their creatures die to it, so. And we have a piece that really does a good job drawing for us, so it wouldn't be the end of the world, for certain. Alright, so they're all in getting creatures on the battlefield here. Okay. He's a turn too late. Let's go ahead and activate this before combat. See if we can find something a little bit better. Yeah, that's a War Chief. Let's get the War Chief, see if we can get them to make a mistake here. Alright, do we want to play the War Boss or the War Chief first? Let's look. They could top deck a Crisis. If they do, they probably have us. So that's the only thing that I know. A Mass Manipulation could be pretty deadly for us as well. Let's look at our options here. We can't activate Icon against the tap ability. War Boss wouldn't have haste and the token would die. Let's go ahead and play War Chief. If they have Ritual of Soot, their entire board dies. If they have Hydroid Crisis, we probably don't win anyway. Let's wait a turn. They don't know we have the War Boss in hand. It hasn't been revealed, so there we go. Alright, opponent. Let's count up some damage here. That's pretty good as well. 2, 4. So the most they can block right now is 9 total. And that would be 6 going through before the War Boss. After the War Boss, it'd be 9 going through. That should be lethal. Let's see. Let's see. With the shock in hand, we should be good to go. Just for safety, let's go ahead and see. These are the triggers I was talking about earlier in the video. Go ahead and have that set up. Go ahead and give the Prinko his counters. That way we have 4 2/2s here. And even if they block successfully right here, we still have the shock in hand. We should be in very good shape. Alright. 3, 5, 7, 10 coming through. They don't know that we have the shock in hand. Let's go ahead and make sure that I'm doing my math correctly this morning. Give our opponents the good game. Upstairs. Good game, opponent. Alright, so that game really showcased the overall power of the deck and how resilient it was. I think it showcased the power of Icon. We got a couple draws there that we wouldn't have gotten without it. Let's go ahead and let's move on. Let's play one more. Best of one here. We'll go ahead. We'll play a total of 3 best of ones, and maybe just 1 best of 3 today. It depends on how much time we have left. Another opponent, slightly lower in the rankings. Obviously, that's a Snap Mulligan. This one's a little bit more of a question. I think we keep this, and instead of keeping the second shock that we know we can cast, let's go ahead and keep the Ringleader, because our hand is pretty weak. If we can hit that 4th land, or even a 3rd land to refill on Ringleader, we will be in much better shape. We have a draw step as well. Okay, Healer's Hawk we probably... see, we draw the 3rd land. We don't need to get rid of it. Let's play Skirt Prospector, go. Alright, so Chain Whirler should be pretty good in this situation. Yeah, that should be really good in this situation. If they had 1 more, I would go ahead and sack the Skirk next turn. But as of now, I don't foresee it being too big of an issue for us. Yeah, there's no point even offering the trade with them. Oftentimes I'll offer the trade just to see if we can get them to do something a little bit odd. Alright, so we can't shock Gideon on their turn. What's he giving them? Is he giving them lifelink or indestructible? Probably indestructible.
I will lend you my strength.
Yeah. Alright. So they've gained quite a bit of life, but if you look at our hand compared to their board state, we are perfectly fine with that. We'll take 3. No big deal. My turn. They have 3 cards in hand. This is probably GG.
That was nothing.
Let's go ahead and poke Gideon. We'd be able to kill him next turn if they don't have anything in their hand that are creature-wise, but I'm sure they do.
I can take it.
History Benalia would be fine. You'd be able to go War Boss and say, this is not horrible. They'll create a Pride Mate. We'll kill the Pride Mate.
Until we achieve peace, we must fight for a better tomorrow.
And then we'll swing with Gideon.
A pure soul
Gideon,
can
kill Gideon.
inspire others.
hope and reduce it to the point that they can't make another
Share
Pride Mate
my
next turn.
light.
Okay. Yeah, we'll take our beats. Pass the damage. Our turn. Alright, opponent. Let's go. Shock there. Alright. Let's look at this. So even if we sacrifice the ringleader for the prospector for the ringleader, we would only be able to remove one of their planeswalkers this turn. So let's just go ahead and play the war boss out. Keep our bodies up. Let's go. Let's get rid of Gideon completely, and then poke a Johnny so that if he wants to make a creature next turn, he dies.
You should consider
Trying to
talking
point sacking our
instead.
entire board right now. That is perfectly fine at this point. A Lyra for them would be pretty strong right now.
Always stand by
Fountain of
your
Renewal,
side.
that's a good sign. Yeah, that card's a pain for us. I've played against this deck before with that card. Can do a lot of damage and gain them a lot of life back. So we just have to. Now we have a little bit more of a clock on us that we maybe didn't have before. Alright. Let's go to combat. We don't quite want to swing out yet. It's a bit frustrating, but we might as well swing both our 1/1s here and just sack whichever one he blocks. For some reason it didn't allow us to respond to that. It's actually kind of annoying. I did not pass the turn there. Interesting. This is a card that if we don't top deck a Banefire here, we are more than likely dead. I've had this experience before and had to sacrifice my entire board for a Banefire. So yeah, this is a lot of Pride Mate bears here. And this is a situation where this is the reason why the Volley Veterans are in our deck as well. Let's go ahead and resolve all. For best of one. Okay, second Krinko is not what we wanted right here. Alright, if we swing out, we're dead next turn. Let's go full control this time. There's no point in swinging with Chain Whirler. Turn full control back on. Huh, that's interesting. It did it to me again. It did not allow. I had full control on and did not allow me to respond. That's very interesting. I've never had that issue before. That is very interesting, actually. Well, we are dead. Let's go ahead and scoop. It wouldn't have mattered, but it's still an odd situation. Alright, that gives you an example of why we run those 3 cards in the main deck that can answer those bigger creatures, because our deck really, on its surface and best of one, we can't handle that unless we hit one of those 3 cards. Run one more back. Got to see the stronger side and the weaker side of the deck. I could have made a sequencing error on the Planeswalkers, allowing the Pride Mate to make or allowing a Johnny to make a Pride Mate at all, but hindsight's 20/20. I did not think that they would sack it to create the last Pride Mate. But that's what happens when you don't know your opponent's hands. Taking a little bit longer to queue this game. Alrighty. See if we recognize any names. Well, I definitely don't recognize that name. 653, that's where we were out yesterday. Alright, this is definitely a keepable hand. It's not a great hand, but it's 7 cards, 3 lands, pretty decent curve. That's the best we're going to do. Will be better than any mulligan. So this is probably red. Maybe not. It might be us. That's a card that I would like to talk about maybe later. Of cards that have not made the cut for me in my deck. Instigator on 2 is a bit scary here. because they very easily could have a turn 3 Chain Whirler, but we might have to just risk that. Okay, Boros. That's good. Okay, so they don't have a Chain Whirler on turn 2. Or turn 3. They're not swinging in either because they don't want to lose that Banneret. That's fine. Makes it tempting to sacrifice the Skirk now. Let's look at our hand. We have the Siege Gang, so we really want that Skirk Prospector. But they really didn't want to lose that Banneret. I guess we're making the bodies here. And without the Challenger pumping the Banneret, we can kill it. Hopefully they'll use the Banneret to pump the Challenger, but we'll see. Yeah, I was thinking his cost 2 to activate as well, but it's 4. So that's not too bad. What do you got, opponent? Let's call the Gideon shot right now, or Tajik. Which one are we going to get? Hopefully neither. Hopefully they just pump. Well, we very much so like that. Okay. Yeah. I figured that they would try to go a little bit taller than our deck, but that's fine. We'll take 4. What do we have? Second main here. The history of Benalia would not be great. There's no point of even shocking ourselves or sacking in response. Well, that plays. The question is, yeah, I think we have to play it. I think we have to play it. We have to get a little bit taller. We have to stay back. We'll swing with 1. So we're not chumping the Boros Challenger yet, but we're definitely, if they're activating a Banneret, we're definitely trading. That's a card that I've really strongly considered in our deck as well. Just giving that extra little bit of reach can be really, really good in certain scenarios. Like just finding a place in the 75 for it's the biggest question. Especially as many 3-drops as we play. Maybe going down 1 Siege Gang, and as you can see, Krinko really hasn't done much this game yet. Alright, that's good too. If he swings out, we're in pretty good shape. We'll go ahead and trade half of a card for Tajik. And we will not complain about that at all. Thanks to the way Mentor triggers, they can only get 1 trigger. I'm not sure if that's how it works rules-wise, but that's how it's always worked on Arena, so that's a good sign. Alright, what you got, man? Interesting, I figured that they'd go ahead and make that a bad trade for us, but that's fine. They probably have another Tajik in hand if they're being that aggressive. Alright. So Krinko is better aggressively. Chain Whirler plays amazing defense right now. I think we have to Chain Whirler. We'll swing. We'll go ahead and swing 2. We shouldn't have to block this turn. Whatever they have is not going to get through Chain Whirler. Now Lava Coil would be pretty tough for us. This is an example of what I was talking about earlier. How it feels like we often. Oh, there's the Lava Coil. That would be pretty tough. Even if we didn't swing, we'd be in pretty rough shape now. Not too worried about Healer's Salt. Kind of makes me wish we'd sequenced it slightly differently. But you never know. You don't know what your opponent's hand. Hindsight. Oh. Well, if we play Krinko, we're just going to have to sack them. If they have a land, no matter what, they kill us. Yeah, no matter what, we're dead this turn because they can pump here, mentor here, mentor here. If we don't chump, so we have to chump. That's depressing, but that's part of it. We're not had a couple of great hands the past few games. Them killing the Skirk Prospector ended up being very efficient for them because we would have been able to power out a Siege Gang with these icons, and that would have probably been impossible for them to overcome. So good move by our opponent, knowing to do that. Alright, if they sequence this right, I don't think we have a chance of winning here. They're shocking, so they have the ability to activate Challenger's ability. And this is probably the integrity. Oh, nope, it's a lava pool. So now they are... Yeah, if they sequence this correctly, they win. That's alright, though. Alright, opponent swinging out. Mentor there, Mentor there. Yep, that's the correct way to sequence, so no matter what, we cannot prevent all 5 damage. We'll go ahead and just block the large it. And die. Well. 2 not so great. 1 great game by our deck. 2 not so great games. Let's move on to best of 3. We tend to have more success than best of 3 because there's a lot more control decks there typically. Let's move to our best of 3 Goblins list. Traditional ranked. We'll get at least 1 in. Hopefully everyone's been able to see some of the sequencing. Some of the play patterns we've had going on. One of the interesting things about making a YouTube video instead of doing a live stream is that there's no chat to interact with, so I don't have much to talk about in between these outside of... Like, I don't have any questions to answer or anything like that. Some of the other decks I've been playing, I've been testing some Naya Feather a lot. It's been okay. It's part of the reason why my rank is so low in Mythic right now, though. It's very hit or miss. The new season of growth is pretty good against a lot of the control decks where we don't lose as much card advantage as you normally would, but it's neither here nor there. Alright, so our opponent is playing first. The fact that they have Narset sleeves tells me they're probably a control deck. so knowing, just going by their sleeves, this feels like a good keep. That's something to keep in mind when you play also. When you get these sleeves like that, you're very much so kind of indicating what type of deck you're on a lot of times. And a lot of good fake outs is maybe, and you know, they might even be blue-black here. Spectral Sailor's not bad. If they're mono blue tempo, we can handle that. Let me destroy this statue over here. Green, huh? That's interesting. Still not a bad hand. They're not putting much pressure on it. Tapped Breeding Pool is something we like to see in this deck. We always liked our tapped Breeding Pools. Alright, if they're passing here, I'm expecting... Alright, what do we want to get countered more? Would we rather have Krinko or Warchief get countered? We have all 5 mana in our hand, so we can catch Siege Gang even without Warchief. I think we go ahead and cast Krinko, because he's not great without... Oh, he resolves, look at that. So our opponent had nothing. Well, if we hadn't been playing around a counterspell, we almost definitely would have played Warchief there. That's alright. Alright. If he's passing, that means he's probably holding up an Elvish Mystic. Let's see if we can go ahead and force it out with Krinko here. Night Pack Ambusher. That's not great either. It's not the worst thing in the world, but not great. So our opponent's on some sort of flash deck. Got a few lands out. Well, losing the Ancestry's rough, but it was never really in her hand. That's one of the important things to keep in mind with this. It's all random. Ambusher staying back to block. That's fine. It's not too bad of a sequencing on their part. Alright, this is one of the clunkiness I was talking about with Warchief and Chain Whirler. A really good sequencing right now would be Warchief into Chain Whirler, but you can't do that because Warchief does not reduce his cost any. Let's go ahead, let's play Siege Gang. He's probably going to get countered by Elvish Mystic, I'd imagine. Yep, there, or Frilled Mystic, sorry. I figured so. No attacks. This will definitely be a matchup where we bring in Chandra. Alright, so we're definitely making that trade. The 3/3's not a great trade. This Night Pack Ambusher is really hard for us to answer in our main deck. This might just be a foreign scoop. Alright. Let's see. That's the turn we can play both here. So that will get countered. I'm sure. Maybe they just draw a card here. Okay, so that got countered. No surprise to me here. Alright. Let's... If they have an Essence Scatter, we might scoop to that at this point. Syncopate on one. What do we got? We got 2 1/1s. They have a good field. Countered 3 of our spells. Well, let's no attacks. See if they kill us. They might be running out of gas here. The Spectral Sailor's card draw ability and us whiffing on that Ringleader not being able to hit that icon might be what costs us this game, but we'll see. Alright. 4, 7, 8, 10, 30. So that would be lethal. Let's go ahead and block once. It's probably a lost cause regardless, but... This is an example, though, of anyone who's... Yeah, maybe this was a mistake. Maybe we don't want them to see... I don't think we want them... Let's see if... Let's put it... Okay, so that's Essence Scatter. That's fine. Let's go ahead and concede. Let's not show them any more of our deck. Alright, so this is one of the things that I think most people will be more interested in, that's sideboarding choices. And this is why these types of decks, we don't handle counter spells very well, and they haven't been around much in the past because of the 3-mana Teferi. So this Chandra Awakened Inferno is actually something that we really need in this matchup. 5-mana clunky spells are probably not good. Siege Gang is not good in this matchup. Having to tap out to play a spell just to get countered is not the greatest option. Same with Krinko. He's probably not quite good enough. We might want to keep him in, though. We really want to get these Lava Coils in. And probably the Volley Veterans. Shock, we didn't really see much that Shock was going to kill. It'll kill some things, but not before they get their value. Let's go ahead and let's cut Shock down for a Lava Coil completely. Let's go up 1 Veteran. Veteran's not going to be great if they counter things that effectively again. Banefire might be better than Lava Coil even, actually. Let's go down there. Still need 2 Banefires is pretty good for our higher end removal. Had some really interesting matchups today. These have not been the matchups I've faced on the ladder in the past week or so, but that's what happens as soon as you record something. You run into your weirdest matchups. But that's how it works, though. We'll see if we can fight through it. We'll, of course, be on the play. That's not a hand that we love, but we will keep it, though. We sideboard those cards in for a reason. Turn 3 Icon might be good enough with the card draw with removal in our hand in Ringleader. Hopefully, we really like to hit a 3-mana Goblin here, though. We do not. Well, we have another turn to draw it. So we'll go. I doubt that they're playing any... Okay, that's pretty good. There's the 3-mana Goblin. We really wanted that. And the good news is, I doubt that they're playing any negates or anything of that sort now in their main deck, because all they've really seen from us has been creatures. Alright. So we're going to play around a flash creature this turn. Yep, I bet they took out most, if not all, their non-creature counterspells. Alright, it's a good example of how Warboss can win the game on his own. Alright. Well, this sucks, but we're gonna have to just do the beats. I have to give him... Ooh, I sequenced that. A good example. I should have played the Skirk before combat there. No, never mind. I want to be able to Lava Coil it, so this is fine. Let's go ahead and bring in 3. So he will get to bluff there. Well, the shock wouldn't have been horrible right now. He will draw a card. That's fine. Let's go ahead and play the Skirk. And let's go ahead and lock pull Big Daddy here. With the Ringleader in hand, they're going to have to do quite a bit this turn. And it's said the motto of the aggro deck is the best card advantage is when your opponent has a fistful of cards and is dead. Warboss has done pretty good work. That's what I was talking about earlier in the video. When you see turn 1 tapped Breeding Pool, you want to get that Warboss out as fast as possible. Entrancing Melody. Alright, well, we're not going to let you have him. We're just going to sack him. Power of Skirk Prospector right there. Look at that, on the game too. Alright, we will not be in as good a shape on the draw against this deck. Against all draw go decks, so it's not the greatest thing in the world. A Fry might be something we consider it on the draw. Skirk did work, Legion did work. I think we have to just ship it back. I feel like we might want to make 1 or 2 changes on the draw, though, so let's take just a second. What is too slow on the draw? Chandras just are out at this point. They had a board state, Chandra would have cleaned up the board, and we could have handled a Night Pack Ambusher for a turn or 2. Going down 1 Instigator for the 3rd Banefire on the draw is probably the right move. We'll see, though. We'll see how that works out. Seems like very much so a toss-up. Hopefully they boarded back in some of their negates, because their negates really aren't even great against our non-creature spells, assuming they're running them at all. So definitely going to choose to be on the play, I'm assuming. Alright. Okay, this is about as good a hand as we're going to get in this matchup. We'll definitely keep that. This is one of those questions where a lot of times I would power out the Legion Warboss on turn 2 right here, but yeah, we know that they don't have a Spell Pierce or anything of that sort, so we might be doing a 2-mana Banefire just as a removal spell next turn. We'll see, though. It depends on if they have the guts to swing with this Sailor or not. They do. Okay, so that's pretty good. Alright. I really don't like sacking the Skirk because this Banefire is our reach. We could be swinging into who knows what here as well. What cards do they have that we're worried about on turn 3? We want to read. Night Pack Ambusher was kind of rough, but they're 2 turns away from casting that. We would need 5 mana for that. And it does not look like we're getting there on turn 5. We probably won't be getting there regardless. Yeah, we gotta go for it. We gotta be fast. They counterspell. It's a 2-for-1 right now. That's pretty rough, but it is what it is. Okay, Syncopate on 1 was rough. We can Chain Whirler next turn. That'll be our response to the 2-for-1. We'll see how that works, but the Ringleader in hand will let us refill our hand if this doesn't work out. Another Syncopate on 1's not the end of the world. Essence Scatter's fine. As long as we can resolve our Ringleader, we'll be in pretty good shape. The question is, do we want to play around the counterspell or just play into it? It's very, very frustrating, but I think we have to play. I think we have to play into it. Do we? They can syncopate on 3, so it won't matter regardless. Yeah, I mean they're draw going. They're casting things with flash at their instep. Let's play around it. So they definitely have it. It's just a matter of if they want to. Okay, so we have Night Pack Ambusher. We're not swinging into. Yep, not swinging into that this turn, so that's fine. No blocks. Is Banefire uncounterable next turn? I need one more turn before it's uncounterable, which is fine. It makes the 2/2. Alright. Well, we gotta play into it. What do you got, opponent? Got the counterspell. No counterspell from our opponent. That's good. A second Night Pack would be pretty rough right now. Let's hold back a turn. Okay, that's good. That means no ambusher yet. If we can get that thing off the battlefield, we're actually in very good shape. Banefire will be uncounterable next turn. No blocks. Ooh, that's a good card off the top too. That's fine. We'll just be safe. We'll Banefire for 5. Get rid of the Night Pack Ambusher. Please try to counter it. Let's go ahead and waste a card for us, buddy. Yeah, that's fine. We'll probably flash in a second ambusher. No biggie. Boom. We really need to get a clock on right here. We don't want to play much defense. But we'll play the bare minimum of defense here. They have to, they have an ambusher where they just have it, but I doubt they do. Alright. Yeah, we have the second War Chief in hand. That Spectral Sailor, the late game being able to just draw that extra card whenever they don't have something with flash is really, really good for them. They're not missing any land drops. Ripjaw Raptor's pretty good. He blocks really well right now because we don't have an icon online. Holding back those two isn't bad. That was the last things we wanted to see right now was a land, so that's not great for us. Let's see if they want to counter that second War Chief. They do not. Well, maybe they'll just go ahead and counter this and get that whatever they seem to appear to be holding up out of their hand. Alright, no point in attacking. I know it seemed kind of odd to attack with the War Boss last turn, but we really needed to get their creature count a little bit lower. That's fine. They could be playing something much, much worse than that. Hopefully they'll swing with the Raptor this turn. If so, maybe we can top decking an icon would be really ideal this turn. Sure, we'll take one. There we go. Well, opponent, do you have it? You have the counter spell. They do not. Well, it's back in the game. We still don't want to swing. I mean, they're on a 6-turn clock right here. We're not in too much of a hurry. I think we just pass. Let's not give them the knowledge of what we hit with Icon. If he sacks and targets it, we will go ahead and use it to draw. Yeah, 3 mana kill spell, draw card's not draw selected card isn't the worst. There's the second icon. That would be nice off the top of our deck. But it's still playing really passive. What do we got? Well, that is not great. Our Siege Gang would be amazing right now, actually. That might have been a bad decision to pull that out. That's player land. There's no point in trying to make them think that we have other cards in hand. They're not running any discard as well. This is a really interesting situation here. This Spectral Sailor is what's getting us. Just being able to draw that extra card or two every turn. It's been very, very good for them. He's still just a 5-turn clock, but he's drawing 2 extra cards a turn. Alright. Nothing changed. We'll hold 1 up this time. Another card draw. I think that he's drawing 5 extra cards this turn. That was a card I was playing around earlier. Taps my creature down. That's fine. He will have very favorable. And for him, it's rough to not swing out at that point. Alright, land. What you got, opponent? You have the counterspell? I think you do. Oh, you don't. Interesting. You don't have lethal. We ought to be able to cast anything that we hit here. That is a draw right there. Alright, so Essence Scatter, and we're in trouble. If not, we're still doing pretty good. There's Essence Scatter. Yeah, we're in trouble again. He's going to draw an extra card. There's no point in swinging through. They can block favorably across the board. There hasn't been for several turns now. This is an interesting deck that's just gotten bigger than us this game. Like I said, this card's been the MVP. That was our best chance of removing him. That is probably the game right there. Even if they don't swing lethal this turn, we won't be able to block very favorably. I'm sure they're just going to swing out at this point. And they're still playing pretty passively. So they know we have to chump. So let's chump with the... No. Chump with the little ones. Let's double here. And single here. Because those guys are not doing anything else next turn. And we're dead the next turn anyway if we don't reduce their board state some. Chandra off the top would play. That plays. Let's see what you got about it. You get to draw a card off of him for resolves. Does not resolve. Let's go ahead and activate that in response. Is that the 4th War Chief? It feels like the 4th War Chief. Yep. The 4th War Chief who's not reducing anything in cost. Let's hang back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4. We are dead no matter what, so let's give the opponent the GG's, and let's move on. We'll get one more game in. I'd like to see, for the deck to show itself off one time. Game 2 there was pretty good, but we'll get in one more and we'll be done for the day. Goblins is one of those archetypes that the 3-drop spot's really solid. But the 2-drop especially, just in general. So it's a very Aether Vial-centric deck. In Legacy, Goblin Lackey's always been so essential. But Warren Instigator, for example, just doesn't even remotely come close. Well, this is a number 19 ranked player. Conan Hawk. I'm not sure who that is. If you guys know who that is, give him a shout out for me. Going in blind, this is good. This is why we run Shock over some other removals, but very often. We're not too scared of Sky Marcher Aspirant yet, but we'll see. Interesting. Just going straight to attacks. Probably trying to force a shock if we have it. Okay, still not too worried about Sky Marcher. Let's go ahead and get rid of that bodyguard for now. It'll make convoking for Loxodon really bad next turn for them. Alright. Let's hope that they don't have Benelish Marshal. That's our primary hope here. Okay, that's good. They would have played it pre-combat. Alright, that's good. Come on, play one more 1 toughness creature. I know you got him. Play him out. Oh, they're not gonna play out. They're not gonna play into it. But still pretty good. 3 for 1. Essentially. Yep. He had the other one, but decided he was not going to play into that. I don't blame him. Alright, we have a pretty decent curve right here. The question is, do we want to go Icon or War Chief? We probably want to save Ringleader a turn. Chain Whirler blocks really well. Tell you what, let's go. Let's go Icon, planning on into Siege Gang next turn. That should stall them out for the rest of the game. I can't imagine that they'll be able to do much else at that point. We'll stay him back, leave him back to block. At most, they'll get 3 damage in. We'll have to use a mana to tap him down. Yeah, so they can't trigger Legion's Landing this turn. You can tell they really want to. So if they tap him down, they won't be able to activate Legions here. Alright, so that's good. It's a good sign for us. Let's kill their thing that can let them block favorably here. If they have some sort of pump spell, that's fine, but the thing that also doesn't die to Chain Whirler. Mystery Bedalia, that's perfectly okay. That's their card advantage piece. Ours is a little bit better. Boom. Boom. Good luck, opponent. Yeah, I don't think that they're going to be able to overcome that. I could be wrong. They might pull off some nice little Loxodon into something else here. There's the blue. So they're going to make a... Yeah, and they'll go into Loxodon more than likely. That's fine, though. It means they're not just dead at this point. They have a chance to recover, but we have a pretty good board state. Oh, Conclave Tribunal. That is not scary at all, actually. Oh, wow. I wouldn't have got rid of that card. Okay. Well, we will take the 3 for let's play that. Yep, good game, opponent. I definitely would have taken the Icon, I think, but that's what happens. Alright, so Shock's pretty good in this matchup. Veteran might be good for hitting some of their bigger creatures. Siege Gang in that game was good. We don't necessarily rely on him, though. Let's cut him down by 1. And let's cut Skirk down to 2. Krinko down to 1. Now what do we have here? We have 4 cards to play with. Definitely want 2 Chandras. Not as concerned about getting a Banefire in, especially not with those. Is Volley Veteran too expensive? It might be. Lava Coil hits everything that it doesn't. Let's go ahead and we'll go up our 3rd Lava Coil. We'll do the big no-no. We'll go down a land. How about that? Look at that. We're going to run 23 lands in a pretty aggressive deck. It's probably not the greatest idea, right? Wink, wink. Alright, Conan Hawk. What you got, buddy? Yeah, guys who you see ranked super high like this are often really competitive streamers. They're probably not overly prepared for the Goblins matchup. The highest I was able to get before life kind of sped back up for me, I got in the top 100 for a day or 2. And after that, I basically wasn't able to play for a couple of days. So I'm a medic student, and and work a full-time job as well, so my time that I actually get to play is pretty limited. But what I do get to play, I like to grind out a lot in one day. Just have 1 or 2 days where I just go hard on it. But the guys like that, they usually everyone's got a life, everyone's busy, so they have to play these really hyper-aggressive decks where they get a lot of games in really quickly to stay at the top like this. So it's a mad respect for people who are able to do that for a long time. Alright, this is no sideboard cards. Our opponent goes first. Just based on the curve, you want to keep this. But, you know, we have one of our one-ofs and 2 of our 2-ofs that we have here. These cards really aren't great in this matchup, so go ahead and mulligan. Alright, this is not much better, but at least we have some type of a clock with War Boss. War Boss really... Rarely is he not amazing. He's not amazing in this matchup. He's just pretty good. So we'll see how he does. Ringleader's pretty decent. We can hit anything. Not too scared of Law Enforcer right now. That's not okay. So his ability to tap's only moderately relevant. It could be very relevant if we have a Chain Whirler again, and I'm sure that's why he led on Enforcer here. Top decking a Chain Whirler would be nice. Get him with a 4-for-1 or 3-for-1 right off the bat. Really, it's just a 2-for-1 because we'd be sacking our own creature, but I'm expecting a pretty aggressive start from our opponent. Alright. I think we go ahead and sack this and play it. They can Loxodon, they can Venalish Marshal next turn. After that, the War Boss is probably not going to be great, and the Skirk Prospector is probably going to be horrible outside of sacking itself for a Ringleader. Then we can True Cast a second War Boss. Let's just do it. We're up a game. Let's go for it. Sure, he can tap it down with Law Reinforcement, but it takes 1 mana every turn, so... I'd like to know what land count this guy's running. He seems to be operating on extremely low lands every game. Just by judging by his hand in the battlefield, like a lot of 1-drops. Yep, that's what I figured we'd be seeing this turn. Yep, and then boom, look at that. The card that would have won us the game last turn. That's fine. That's what happens. Okay. Good news is, we'll poke through 2 damage this turn, I guess. 2 of our Goblins will survive, so if we hit an Icon, we'll be in much better shape. That new feature's pretty nifty, after you get used to it. And getting that lot, being on the play versus on the draw in this game is so big. If we could have gotten that Chain Whirler on turn 2, that would have been lights out difference. Okay, so we're going to take a bunch this turn. 3, 5, 9, 13. That's good, no blocks. There's no, we're not blocking favorably anywhere because everything has indestructible. We need to make some bodies next turn. If he can get down a Conclave or a second Loxodon, that will probably be in rough shape. Alright. I think he probably just has us. Very fast start from our opponent. That's what... You don't get that high up without doing that. He's prepared to sack. He doesn't know about Ringleader. Let's not give him any information. Let's move on to the 3rd game. Good game, opponent. Alright. 3-read Fry. We wanted Fry that last game. That was a little bit of a punt on my end. Let's go back. Let's go down 1 War Boss for a Fry. Is there anything else that would be better than War Boss? He's just not very good in this matchup. I'll actually cut him down completely in favor. We'll go 1 Volley Veteran, 2 Volley Veteran. Do we want the 3rd one, or is there something else better here? To go back up the Siege Gang, could just go back up our land. But we played fine without it last game. We might even want to go down to 22. We run 22 in our best of 1 Goblins deck. Tell you what, let's go down our third land. Let's go up the Volley Veteran. We really want to get those, or our second land rather. We really want to get those Venalish Marshals, those Venerated Loxodons off the battlefield the best we can. We'll be on the play. So say this is the reason why going to 22 lands is so tempting, but also makes you feel really bad. Thanks to the random shuffler. Basically, if you have 22 lands, this is practically your guaranteed opening hand is 2 lands into a bunch of stuff you can't cast. Let's mulligan. It's amazing if we had lands. Well, I talk crap about 22 lands, and here we are. Look at this. I think we keep this. Chain Whirler is that strong in this deck that we just hope we draw into anything. And, yeah. Win this matchup, rather. Alright, well, that's not a card that Chain Whirlers are good against. 2 mana go. Alright, Chandra. It's great in this matchup. Anything with 1 toughness or less would be really nice to see this turn. Preferably 2 of them. If they play 2 of them and we can drop a Chain Whirler the next turn, that'll definitely buy us plenty of time to get Chandra off. Just 1 of them. That's fine. That's someone who's playing. They're playing around it. They're going to try to flip Legion's Land the next turn. Hopefully, if we drew into something better, we'd play it. I think we just go ahead and we take the bait. They're obviously trying to play around the Chain Whirler. So just make it just a 2-for-1, right? No big deal. Turn 3, 3 mana, 2-for-1. Seems pretty bad, but yeah, that's what I figured. They had some more 1 toughness creatures in hand. That's alright. That card's good in this matchup. Ringleader. Let's see if we can hit some things. Now next turn, we really want to hit a... Ooh, we whiffed. That's one of the problems with Ringleader in this matchup, is that we really, we probably could have been a little bit more aggressive there and swung with the Chain Whirler, but we're playing the more control-y. Yeah, this is what we figured we'd see. We really want our 6th land this game, if we can hit it. I guess that's fine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's, on our turn, let's go ahead and shock the Bodyguard. Try to keep them from ascending next turn. No attacks. Now we really don't attack favorably. The reason why we didn't play the Siege Gang there is because there's no point of playing the Siege Gang if we're planning on board wiping with Chandra next turn anyway. That Dauntless on the Venerated Loxodon is a little bit annoying. But if we can hit that 6th land for Chandra, we'll be in much better shape. Their creatures actually at this point out toughness Chandra's ultimate, so let's just go ahead and play the Siege Gang. It's not great, but it'll have to do. No attacks. So flipping legions, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, that's 15 there. Let's not put ourselves in a position where we have to make bad blocks to live next turn. Go ahead and make a chump block now. Yeah, Chandra's not great in the face of these 4 cards here. Amazing in almost every hand that they have in their deck, but Gets very specifically those 4 cards. She's not amazing. She's not bad, though. She can be removable for us. A Conclave Tribunal on our Chain Whirler would be a bit of a tilt here. Oh wow. The 5th one. Or the 3rd one, that is. Yeah, Tocatli Honor Guard probably. Probably seals the deal for them, as our Siege Gang doesn't make any more tokens here. Alright, so what can we do next turn? We can block something bigger, then sack something chumping, and take it down, and basically just try to stall here. That Tocatli Honor Guard makes that Siege Gang in hand look really, really bad, though. If we can trade, if they swing out here, if we can trade for the Tocatli Honor Guard, that would be really ideal. If they have a Conclave Tribunal, they just have it. That's just part of it. Alright, so pass to blockers. Alright, so that one's the one chosen by Dauntless, right? Yeah, so we don't want to mess with that one. We want to block here. We want to block here. Alright, total control. Block. We're past the first strike damage. Going to sacrifice one of our blocking goblins here to trade up. If he has the Unbreakable Formation in hand to cast, yeah, we would be dead anyway. I don't know why he wouldn't cast it on his main. Alright. Oh, that's pretty good. That is actually pretty good for us. So we can cast that at instant speed, so let's... Alright, yeah, we probably want to. Do we want to activate that yet? Let's wait. I guess we're passing the turn here. This will actually be my first time casting this card in a constructed format. I cast it in limited once. Alright, that's fine. 1/1 is not that big of a deal. What's he targeting? Chain Whirler, alright. Yeah, there's really nothing we can do about that one. Let's cancel that sack for now. Let's fry here. Yeah, they just got us with that one. I mean, there's not much we can do besides that. And then just die. Let's give them the good games. Yep, we are just dead. It doesn't really matter how we block. No blocks, 2 damage. Good game, opponent. The Tocatli Honor Guard was definitely the game clincher for them. It wasn't the game winner, but that clinched it for them. I'd like to run it back and do one more game here, but we've gotten some funky matchups. Played against that guy. Played against him before once. I don't know who he is, if he's a streamer or anything like that, but so if he is, like I said, you all give him a shout out for me. He's a very good player, very good aggressive player. But that's basically the general idea of the list. We'll run one more best of one, and then we'll be finished with gameplay today. I like to end on a winning note. 2-1 losses are pretty rough, especially against decks that it doesn't necessarily feel like we're unfavorable against, but I've had not bad matchups in the past, but the Flash deck was pretty weird. It was cool. If anyone knows who had that deck or who plays that deck, I appreciated that. The Spectral Sailor was absolutely insane. He probably drew 7 cards against us that game. This last game, I really wasn't prepared for a baffling end. It was well timed. 3 Venerated Loxodons and Snubhorde and Sentries are pretty impossible for us to fight through in our deck, unless we were running 4 Fries in our sideboard. But that's part of it, though. I hate that we've not gotten to showcase the true power level of this deck, but maybe once or twice on video here. But well, this is a good on the play hand. We don't cast anything till turn 3, but the things we cast on turn 3 are pretty powerful things. I mean, these are 2 of the more powerful 3-drops in all of Standard right here, and then Icon, obviously. We're probably not going to cast it on turn 3 unless we top deck the Instigator, but yeah, we'll hopefully Paradise Druid from our opponent might just be GG for them. That's interesting. That's a good card. It's not doing anything that we aren't prepared for here. Let's cheat him out. He blocks the Barkide. That's a really... Mono Green Devotion is one of my favorite decks in modern, like, pet decks. I don't run it, obviously, as my tier 1 deck or anything, but that's interesting. So, that's pretty cool synergy, too. Some type of Jund aggro list. Alright. How do we sequence this? Let's go ahead and play the War Boss. That way we have 1 extra Goblin that survives here, and we can icon for later. If he has a fungal infection, good for him. But there we are. Alrighty. Rekindling Phoenix. That's one of the cards that we do not like to see in our deck ever. And this is why we don't play Best of 1 very often. Because that is a card that very often we just cannot beat in our deck. Let's do this now. On Goblin. You really can't race them, but we're going to try to. We're going to pretend like we're going to race them. Make them sweat a little bit. But that's probably just the end of the game at this point. Hopefully they'll get overly aggressive, swing with everything they've got, maybe get a hasty creature later in the game we can go off, but please, if he makes it hasty, okay. If we made it hasty, we'd been in extremely good shape, but opponent is playing smart, playing conservative. We're dead next turn. Like I said, that's the reason why I typically try to avoid Best of 1 in a deck that has really swingy matchups like that, or cards that just beat you on the spot. And but we're just playing for fun at this point. This is not doing anything. Mana efficiently wise, you could argue playing Ringleader, hoping that you hit something with 3 mana, but you're probably not going to. Double trigger. The good lesson though, we can't beat that card in our main deck, not at least. That makes me think, maybe we should run Lava Coils, but honestly, it doesn't do enough in any other matchup, and that card probably sees plays in maybe 5% of the meta, and I can't justify main decking it because of that, but maybe I'm just wrong. Yeah, maybe I'm just incorrect. Let's see. Well, what would we have drawn? War Chief? That's not good enough either. Okay, let's move on with our lives. Get him at 2. Yeah, they would kill us the next turn. Interesting play on their part. If we had had a shock or something in hand, there would have been no way for them to know, and they would have been just dead. But yeah. Alright, run it back one more time. Let's get one good game in here. I've had some pretty amazing ones, and I like to catch at least one on video. Alright. Yeah, that's a good curve. Anytime we can get War Chief into Volley Veteran. That Banefire is bad right here, but it's really probably just a 2-mana removal spell. If we're against control, which it appears like we are, it can be some pretty good reach late game. Thought Erasure, they'll probably get the Banefire if I had to guess, but maybe not. They might get the Siege Gang or the War Chief. Yeah, War Chief makes sense. That you can't give some of these other things haste and something that their deck's probably not very. Anytime I see blue-black, I assume it's some type of Planeswalker deck. It might not be. The Planeswalker decks do not like hasty creatures because they have to plan all their cards at instant speed or sorcery speed. Excuse me. So no counter. That's a really good sign for us. So we have one card advantage engine online. We have a second in hand. Alright. Well, that's pretty good for us. No counter spells, huh? That's fine if you Vraska's Condemned, so we've already got the value here. Come on, let's get a good 3-for-1 value here. That would be nice. Boom. 2-for-1 value. 3-for-1 kind of. They 1-for-1 us, and we got 2 extras, so. Doom Whisperer. That's interesting. Alright, well that's a clock, but not much of a clock. So we can go War Chief into Instigator. Go. And then they will be in much less positive shape here. The Volley Veteran's good. That's another card that if we didn't have it in Banefire, we would not be able to beat it more than likely. But that's why these cards are in our deck in best of 1. Its damage is fine. The Rituals of Sutsus will be pretty. Yeah, that's fine. That's not the end of the world. We have 2 different ways to get rid of stuff. It is now a 2-turn clock though, so we have to be extremely efficient with our mana here. Alright. So if we play him, that creates 1, 2, 3, 4 goblins. Huh. So we have to play Krinko and attack with Krinko for Volley Veteran to be turned on. Otherwise, we don't have enough goblins to get rid of that Doom Whisperer. It's annoying, but you know, 2 mana for 8 power is a pretty good rate, though. And then the next turn, we just hit basically anything, and we've got them. Alright. Now we're going to Volley Veteran. One of your Doom Whisperers. Your 2-turn clock is now gone. Boom. And we have lethal next turn if they do not do anything better. And if they don't board wipe here, this will be an extremely good game to end on. If they board wipe, will be very sad though. Oh. Well. No counterspell. GG. Opponent. Oh no. Dream Eater. Okay. What are we losing here? Are we losing our hasty creature? Or are we losing the icon? That would be the card to get rid of, yes. That's quite bad for us. That's part of it, though. Is there anything we can do? This is why the 4th Skirk Prospector's in our deck, by the way, because a Skirk Prospector would win us this game. Alright, let's just see how he blocks. Still quite a bit of damage coming through. If he's smart, he'll just block one of the 1/1s. Well, why risk it, I guess. We will make a point to Banefire for 0. Confirm 0. Take that, opponent. And concede. Yep, Skirk Prospector would have been really nice in our opening hand there. There's not much we could do about that. That's a card it's a bulk rare. It's not a great card. Well, we are outside of the percentile of rankings at this point, so that is not great. We are in the very bottom of Mythic right now, but that's okay. We'll climb back up. Let's play one more. That showcased some of the power level of the deck. I had some really weird decks that we've been playing against recently. We've not seen any meta decks, any tier decks, but I guess the most recent Pro Tour hasn't happened, so people are just playing whatever they like to play, and that's good. I enjoy Goblins, and this has been almost an hour and a half of pure Goblin play. So we'll see how this goes. Check the time here. Sorry about that. Alright. We're 99%. I've never had that come up before ever, so they're not even calculating our ranking, I guess, is how that works. This is pretty slow for on the play, but War Chief makes it a keepable hand. We just hope that Chain Whirler's good. In a format where there's less control decks, like getting 2 Mythic was really, really easy because there's a lot of control decks. Well, there goes the icon, but that's fine. Getting 2 Mythic was really easy because there was a lot of control decks on the way up. But after you get to Mythic, there's a lot of Gruul aggro, a lot of Boros Feather, things like that. And it's not a bad format for the deck, but it's not... Aggro decks are not our strong suit. We punish other fair decks, and that's how we've always been. Like, as a tribe in general, Goblins has always been that way. This information campaign's not the end of the world. We play the War Chief. Hopefully he's not paying attention. We can sneak in a Hasty Krinko next turn. And I think this will be for sure our last match of the evening. Yeah, Ashiok. We're not scared of Ashiok. That's fine.
I am that which night is.
So we'll be able to sneak in.
Behold.
Hopefully, if we could top deck a Legion War boss, that would be pretty insane right here too. That works. That works as well. That plays. Honestly, we might want to remove instead now. I'm not even messing with that Ashiok. Yeah, look at that. Boom. Alrighty. Well, opponent, you didn't hit your 4th land. Does he have the board wipe in hand? That's the question. Does he have the ritual? There's the 4th mana. There's the ritual. That's why we played the Ringleader. Ringleader doesn't die. We can go if we top deck a land. We can go War Chief into Krinko next turn. That's pretty good.
You will be haunted.
Yeah, that's not horrible either. Let's see. So this is a good sequencing question here. We almost definitely want to go War Chief, but there's a good argument for playing Icon first. But they're pretty low life. We just got to keep throwing damage at their face from what I've seen. The rest, they're going to get rid of the Icon. It's fine. Let's tear down the statue. So there was the Legion War boss. That would have probably just changed him, so it's good on them, but count out damage here. Alright. So what are our options here? This plus shock would be lethal. But also Chain Whirler plus that would be lethal. Basically, they can't have a Vraska's Contempt. Alright, they're more than likely dead no matter what we do here. But just to be safe, let's go ahead and Chain Whirler.
You're not scared enough.
Attack their face. That's 3. Control. Let's go ahead and make the damage go through. Boom. There we go. Alrighty, good game. We're going to end on that one. It's been quite a long video already. We're back. At least we have a number now, right, guys? Well, been quite a long video. I hope you got to see some of the power of the deck, some of the way I sequence things. Obviously we didn't have a great record with the deck, but it was okay. It performed pretty well. I can't think of any major sequencing errors I made or anything. There's a couple times where I might maybe, in hindsight, should have played things differently, but not knowing the cards in hand. But so the deck is what it is. It's very good, as you see this last game, against control-y type matchups. It recovers from board wipes insanely well. decks with full of low cost 3 power, 4 toughness creatures, though, we do struggle against. And that's just kind of part of it. That's part of the meta. And the higher ranked you get, the more decks you'll see this early in the month, just because when you play an aggro deck, you climb up the ladder faster. You might not be the better player, but you're going to get more games in and have a higher win percentage. That's why you see a lot of mono red as you're climbing. But overall, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Give me like, thumbs up, or whatever. I don't even think I have a YouTube account set up right now, so you don't really have to worry about that. I just hope it was helpful. Hope you got to see someone who's played maybe over 100 games with this deck, get some experience and give some advice. And that's all.